Depending on whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced lifter, what you need to focus on, how I'm going to coach you, and the reasons why I'm getting you to do the things that you are will look a little bit different. Because if you are a raw beginner, you're not going to be strong enough to have any real strong points, so there's no need on trying to hyper fixate on the specific weak points that you haven't even developed yet. For now, what we need to do is establish a solid and repeatable baseline in your technique, and once we have that and we continue building off of it, then we can start looking at weak points as they become apparent depending on what your leverages look like. Now, if you're an intermediate lifter, that is going to be kind of the shittiest phase of powerlifting to be in because things are no longer easy, but we don't yet have things figured out enough to be able to express your true potential. And in the case of an intermediate, the biggest thing that I want to do is I want to nail down any weak points right now and potentially shift leverages around as those weak points do improve so that we can push you towards bigger numbers with more efficient technique in the future. Now, for an advanced lifter, you kind of got things figured out. Things are pretty solidified. We don't really want to be making any major changes with your technique, but we do want to refine your technique and refine your training to better target the little things that are going to be limiting where your lifts are going. And in this video, we're going to break down some lifts from a beginner, from an intermediate, and an advanced lifter so I can show you what I'm focusing on in terms of coaching them so that you can apply it to your training no matter where you are in your powerlifting career. Now, for the beginner, we're going to start out with Patrick, whose bench press looks like someone who used to be a long-distance cycler because he used to be a long-distance cycler. Constructive bullying is one of the cornerstones of my coaching philosophy, FYI, because if I can bully a guy constructively, it makes light of his deficiencies so that we can have an easier time wrapping our heads around working on them. So if we're looking at where Patrick's bench started, it started not very good. He's all loosey-goosey, he has about zero setup strategy, and the bar is freaking all over the place. Getting his bench to look a lot better was a matter of refining his setup and giving him a repeatable strategy that he could do over and over again to dial into better tension off the start. For Patrick, what that looked like is going to be a pretty standard bench setup strategy, meaning that once he was set on the bench with his traps dug into the pad and his feet where he wanted them, what we're going to focus on is applying slight upward pressure to the bar, setting the lats by pulling the bar into the J-hooks while maintaining that upwards pressure, then flexing the triceps to finish the unrack, and then we're just going to pull out with the lats until we get to the start position. Once we dialed that start position in, the next focus was making sure that he was carrying more tension down to the bottom, and to help him learn that skill, we started employing a paused spoto press with the goal of trying to catch the bottom of the spoto with his upper back and making sure the upper back was doing its job in holding the ribcage where it belongs. Now, I know, a spoto press, yes, the pecs, yes, the delts, yes, the triceps will doing the vast majority of catching the weight. But the thing is if we can get the upper back in there just a little bit and have a little bit of upper back help, that can make a huge difference in how solid the bottom of your bench feels. And that was the biggest thing that we were missing. So that is what we prioritized. For the rest of Patrick's training, we're taking a pretty balanced approach to accessories to make sure that everything he needs is being touched. And as his bench does improve, we're going to refine that accessory strategy to potentially target things that need more work than others, but that is going to be something that we'll have to do as his bench technique and as his strength continues to improve. Now, the only thing that I will still complain about with what his bench looks like is he's kind of in a habit of getting rid of the pause when things do get heavy, so that's just going to be more constructive bullying to yell at him to have a comp standard pause. Now, the reason I want a comp standard pause, even if a guy isn't a competitor, is that if we do have a comp standardized pause as the standard that we were repeating for all of our heavy work in training, if a guy has the same pause for every heavy press, it becomes very easy to measure progress. But if a guy is touch and going, it can be very easy when the bar gets heavy to turn that touch and go into a little bit of a bounce, to trick yourself into thinking that you're making progress when you really aren't. And being able to meter whether or not it's working is going to be dependent on whether or not we have a consistent standard that we are repeating rep to rep, set to set, and week to week. Now, for the intermediate slot, we're going to be taking a look at Martin, who is probably on the higher end of the intermediate scale, especially if we're thinking about his deadlift, because he is a reliable 700-pound plus puller. But if we look at a squat, there is definitely some stuff left to be desired, because this is the classic deadlift expert zero quad, shoot hips back, turn into a good morning squattage. And for him to be as good of a squatter as he is, I don't want to take away from the work that his back and hips are doing, because his back and hips are clearly very strong, especially when we think about where his deadlift is number-wise. But the thing is that if his squat is entirely back and hips and he is avoiding the shit out of his quads, if we can get more quads in there to help the back and hips out, he's just going to be able to lift more weight. Now, Martin's case, it was a little bit trickier too, because part of the reason he was avoiding quads is he has a long-standing history of jacked up and funky knees. So in order to get those knees to work better, so we could start using quads more and more and more and more, what we started him out with was actually easing into some forward knee travel with some heel elevated goblet squats as his training slot, and then running some ATG split squats with the goal of getting forward knee travel in his homework. Now, as he was able to start shoving the knees forward without his knees feeling like they were going to explode, what we did is we introduced some higher box squats with the goal of using the box to increase the amount of knee travel so that he could get into the quads, but we made sure the box was high enough that his knees did not feel sketchy. Once we got those box squats rolling to the point where the knees weren't all that funky there, we swapped those out for some high bars with, again, the emphasis on the forward knee. And as the high bars improved, we started looking for more and more knee travel on his comp squats, because doing the goblet squats, doing the high box squats with quad intent, dropping into the high bar, that was desensitizing his knees and making them more ready for the travel at the same time as we were making his quads very strong. Now, if you're in a gym where you do have leg machine options, I probably would want to toss in a quad priority, knee travel priority, hack squat, or leg press along with those, but Martin does not, so we're working with the barbell stuff that he has access to bring the quads up. With his comp squat right now, his comp squat doesn't feel as strong as it used to, but that is okay, because the goal isn't to make the quaddier comp squat feel strong right now. The goal is to set him up so that 3, 4, 5 years down the road, when he is rock solid in the quads, he's going to be able to squat 800, because based on his deadlift, that is where we should be looking. Now, for our advanced lift today, we got Melissa, who is an insanely good competitor. She's been on the world stage. She's really, really, really strong. She knows exactly what she's doing, and her technique when we started was pretty darn rock solid. So I'm not trying to make any major swings here with her deadlift, because she already was a super good deadlift. What I'm trying to do with her deadlift is refine intent a little bit. And what I want you to notice looking at what her pull used to look like is that she's kind of kicking back into the hips, similar to what Martin was doing on his squat, although to a much less detrimental degree. So the biggest thing for Melissa in her deadlift technique is getting her to start to prioritize a little bit more toe pressure to help her stay in the legs and keep her over the bar. We also want to be building some quad strength too. So what we're doing with her deadlift, we're going to be running some leg presses with a conventional deadlift intent as her main builder. And what that's going to look like for a conventional deadlift intent is we're going to have the feet nice and low on the platform. We're going to be in a conventional stance. And then we're just trying to let the knees travel forward, get into about our bottom end position of our conventional deadlift, maybe a little bit deeper, and then drive our way out of that leg press. And as she's gotten stronger at that, the deadlift has improved, but that isn't the full picture, because what we're also doing is working on squat variations with the intent of getting her to develop the skill of driving with the quads out of the bottom. And we were having a hard time figuring this out for a little bit, because she is really, really, really good at kicking back into the hips. And it actually is one of the hip kickbacks that I'm kind of more okay with, because it is quite efficient with her leverage. But the thing is that if we can learn to stay in the quads better, both the squat and deadlift will improve. So what we started doing for that is we started having her run front box squats. And again, we're using the box as a stop between the concentric and the eccentric, or I guess the eccentric and the concentric, because the eccentric happens first. But we're using that front box squat so that she can get to the box with forward knee. The goal on the box is to stay as tight as possible and do the best job that she possibly can to drive straight up off the box. Now, a front box squat with its intent, especially for someone who is good at using their hips is going to be hard as shit. So right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to not force load, similar to what we're doing with Martin's squat, so that we can learn the pattern, because the biggest thing here is getting the patterning down, because if we can get the patterning down, the quad strength that she's building with her leg press is going to carry over way, 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 way better into her competition deadlift. So if you're a beginner, the biggest priority that we need to do is make sure that we are establishing a consistent and repeatable base for your technique that isn't really leaving any gigantic holes based on your levers. And if you're an intermediate lifter, if you do have giant holes in your technique and giant weak points that are exposing you, the biggest thing that we need to do is fill in those holes as quickly and as well as possible. And in Martin's case, where his squat had essentially 0 quads in it, it's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass in the short term in order to get the work in that will let him squat better in the future. But if he does that work now, not only will his squat start moving, his squat is going to be way better than it ever could have been had he not made these changes. And if you're an advanced lifter, the biggest thing that we need to do is further refine technique, further refine efficiency, and start tacking on to those little tiny weak points, because that is what's going to let you reach even higher heights. And if you're watching this now and are feeling stuck in training, or just think that you could be making better progress than you are in this moment, hit the link below and join the team, because that is my full service powerlifting coaching platform, where not only are you going to be able to get rock solid programming that ensures that you are doing exactly what you need, and while you're running the program, you will be able to get daily individualized coaching directly from me, so you're getting feedback on every single lift that you post, so we can make sure that things are trending in the right direction. And if we need to make any refinements to your technique or your programming, you're going to be able to do that as soon as possible. The team is absolutely insane, and powerlifting coaching like this does not exist anywhere else. So hit the link below and join today, because right now we got a free 7-day risk-free trial going on. So you can hop in, get coaching from me for a week for free. And if you're not impressed, you absolutely will be. You can cancel at no loss to you.